All right, so we have a few people on. So I guess the topic of the show might be all things Devin.
Yeah, we can start like that. I wouldn't mind touching on the bottom 8 bullshit.
Yeah, so the last competition we saw from Devin was his match with Denis Aplinkov in Poland in November. I mean, what are your high-level thoughts on his performance there?
Yeah. Well, I actually went in believing that he can possibly fatigue Denis going into like the later rounds by pumping up his hand, because I believed he was a much more technical, proficient arm wrestler. But I still had him as a slight underdog, but wouldn't be shocked either way. And what we ended up seeing was just was somewhat alarming, only because Devin was never. Sometimes he went into matches where he was slightly weaker, but overcame it with endurance or versatility. This was the first time that I can remember where he was absolutely dominated on on pure physicality. You know, it wasn't even close. I thought.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I don't know. I was kind of torn coming into the match on whether Devin had a chance or not. When you look at some of the history, I mean, Denis really hasn't lost many matches left hand. And I think most of the losses he's had left-handed after so were probably context losses. Right. You know, he had a war with this guy and a war with that guy, and then this guy was able to beat him. So it was essentially Devin, you know, undersized, underweight, natural athlete against someone who's never really lost. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I think we all want to believe that Devin can do anything. So, you know, I think part of me thought Devin had a chance. But man, I think the gap was huge.
Massive. Yeah. Yeah. And you also,
know, and then
yeah, the format itself, you wanted to believe that would favor Devin the 6 rounds. And the way he fatigues and the way he, you know, he tactically fatigues his opponent in the setup. So you believe that favored him, but it had no bearing whatsoever.
Correct. And I mean, even in the press conference where they ended up getting on the table, you could see there's a huge power gap.
Yeah.
But you could also see that Denis was pretty smart. I mean, anytime Devin went on the offensive or, you know, gained a higher technical ground on the table, Denis let it go.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't just sit there grabbing and holding on to Devin like Devin expects people to do. He was quick to let go. He was quick to get out. And then when the actual matches came up, Denis didn't really play into a lot of the setup games. You know, anytime Devin tried to engage or play the setup game, Denis would let go.
Yeah.
Devin false starts, Denis lets go. So Denis didn't really waste any energy or generate any like excessive blood flow in the setup that would have helped Devin in the later rounds. So I thought it was interesting that Denis seemed a lot smarter than I think most people would have given him credit for.
Yeah, his coaching was was definitely on par. It was good. Yeah.
So is there a situation where Devin has a chance against someone like Denis?
Moving forward?
Yeah.
Well, at his age and the fact that I believe, from a personal standpoint, without any, of course, proof, I believe he's a natural athlete. So he's going to have to do one of two things. He's either going to have to drop down and just stay in the 220 division, or he's going to have to get on something, and because he is an underweight super heavyweight. So he'll either have to get on something and gain weight around 255, 260, 265, 270, or drop down and dominate or try to dominate the 225s. But let's face it, you know, he's declining. I mean, with age alone, he's slowly transitioned from an all-around powerful arm wrestler who can win a super match in any form to now, kind of like with that wild card Kings move, he's kind of like relying on all those tactics. You saw it with Michael Todd. Jerry was actually was a different match. He did some amazing things from a physical standpoint, albeit dominated the setup. But I think he's transitioning into a different type of arm wrestler, relying on more of the intangibles than the tangibles. But I think that's part and parcel with just getting older in a strength sport.
So you say as of right now, Devin is a weaker athlete than he was? a few years ago.
I believe so. Yeah. Well, a few years ago, he was coming off. At one point, he was coming off surgery, and then he flattened out. But I mean, yes, at 44, he's weaker than he was at 41. I mean, you know.
Correct. That's interesting. I mean, I think we typically say that, arm wrestling is something you can, well, I guess ever, but I mean, you've had people like John Brezink and Todd Hutchins that you could argue improved in their 40s. Mm-hmm. Right. And even like maybe Todd, he's improved into his 50s.
Yeah. But that's,
I think Todd at 51 is better than what he was in his 40s.
Well, his move is better. Like he's really mastered that move. But I mean, it's hard to gauge where he's stronger. I mean, is he stronger generally as a man? I doubt it. Is his compound lifts in the gym stronger? I doubt it. He's just that move. I mean, that move, like Devin said in one of his videos, that move only gets better with practice and experience. You're better at that move in year 15.
Okay, so I'm talking about Todd Hutchins.
Oh, Todd Hutchins. Sorry, I was thinking of Michael.
Yeah, Michael Todd's maybe 40, I think, but Todd Hutchins has seemed to improve even as he's crossed 50.
Yeah, well, he's my most interesting subject to talk about, only because he's the anomaly, and I think he's got the tangibles and the intangibles, and I think he attacks the sport, the training aspect of the sport much differently. Unlike Devin, and they're roughly, well, he's a little bit older than Devin. Well, Devin's looking for a tactical advantage to win matches now that he's a little bit older. He's using, his brain a little bit more. He's using stamina. He's using angles. Todd is still, let me get it inside. He's just going sideways like a diesel, right? And seemingly, he's better at that now than he was 3 years ago. He's better at that 3 years ago than he was 10 years ago. So it's just really fast. He's done with age.
So, yeah. So we've discussed Devin declining, having trouble in the super heavyweights. So without drugs, is there a way that Devin becomes better on the world stage? Or are we going to just watch Devin, I don't know, fall off a cliff at this point from a performance standpoint?
Yeah. Well, he's definitely, he will actually, if you're talking 225 class or super heavyweight class of the world stage, I think there's no longer even a debate that he cannot compete in the super heavyweight class world division, world stage. I believe even at the 225 division, he's going to struggle to be the number one man on the world level. Now, that doesn't mean Wall can't shoehorn him into certain super matches where he can dominate and look great based on styles and based on matches. But I think it's going to be, unless he does something, there's going to be a slow decline coming his way in the next 3 to 5 years. I think it's inevitable unless he does something.
Yeah, I wonder how easy it is for Devin to make 225. I mean, I know he did it for a couple of years, but I'm curious if that is either difficult or even counterproductive from a general health standpoint. As a natural athlete, I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that you might need to run heavier than someone that cuts. So like across the board, you're at a disadvantage because you can't recover from, you're actually hurting yourself by mass.
Right.
So I'd be curious if Devin thinks 225 is a legit option across the board, Yeah.
Well, yeah, I believe.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Who are the best 225? So I know you said Devin, but I'm curious as to what the field looks like that he'd be competing against.
Wall or world?
Well, world.
Well, Krasny.
So Krasny?
Yeah. Sasho. I mean, I think both these guys walk around anywhere between 215 and 230. Maybe Kraz is a little bit heavier. But
yeah, I think this year, I think Krasny's like, well, he walked into Zloty at 209.
Okay.
But at times he walks at 230.
Okay.
Man, I don't know if Sasho is that heavy.
Yeah, he might not be.
Yeah, so he might be 200 pounds, which would tell me that there's another Sasho out there that's 230 pounds, right? Whether he's Ukrainian or Bulgarian or from wherever.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also that Vitaly Lilitev, very, very tall, very
incredible. Yeah. Vitaly Lilitev.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably around 260.
Oh, is he?
So Now, yeah. So maybe in the super heavyweight segment, that would be a possible matchup for Devin, but it doesn't seem like a good matchup.
No. No.
Did you see the practice video of them pulling on the table, side table at PAL?
I did not. No. No.
Oh man, I wish I could pull that up.
Was that? Are you talking about Devin?
Yeah, Devin and Vitaly pulling on the side table at Zlotty.
No, I didn't. Wow, what happened?
Yeah, Vitaly seemed to control him everywhere on the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you know, that doesn't mean everything.
No.
But Vitaly had a lot of good adjustments. He adjusted high, he adjusted low, extremely good hand control. Yeah. Devin ended up slipping, I think, on most of the starts that they did. So I don't know if you get him in this trap, it would be much different. But yeah.
Also, it
did look great.
The difference in North America, 225, is Devin's a runner now. Devin's essentially become a runner first. And that seems to work very well in the United States. But it seems like I found when you cross the ocean and you pull the elite guys in the world, in Europe, that running stuff, you can't get away from their power. They're really, really good at getting their hook in, getting their power in, and you almost have to beat them there, seemingly. So I don't think you're going to see him at the world stage. I think he's going to stay in North America and pull wall and have super matches in that form.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate because I think we probably the fans missed out on Devin's prime with WAL. You know, I think Devin made some pretty good money, but from a sport legacy standpoint, he's still great. He's still one of the best ever, but I think it could have been maybe far greater, or we didn't get to see the true peak of Devin on the world stage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of one of my issues with the lockdown league is that you don't get to see a lot of the stuff.
Right.
And if we start seeing the matches now, let's say Devin ventures out more now, it's not the same thing. No. You know, Devin 5 years ago against Gennady is not the same thing as Devin now against Gennady or Vitaly or Ivan Matyushenko or any of these guys.
Yeah. As Hutchins gets older and Brzezinski got older into his mid to late 40s, they didn't change stylistically. Devin's changing stylistically. I'm almost curious that at one point he'll revert back to a power first arm wrestler, which he did like back in 2006, 2008 when he pulled David Randall, when he pulled Michael Todd that first time in Manchester, England. I'd love to see him do that. I don't know if he thinks that's in his best interest or he just doesn't think it's the way he needs to go to become the top of the elites again.
Yeah, I think when we compare that group, like you mentioned earlier, we have to factor in the PEDs and stuff like that. I mean, some of those guys had, you know, things to extend their career, whereas it seems Devin's not on the same level. And then Devin's surgeries, yeah, I don't know if he still can maintain some of those angles, you know, at a higher level. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd assume that the elbow has a lot more slack in it now, possibly, but I don't know. Maybe it's tighter. Yeah.
He just seems less apt to go into those deep hook matches. It seems like his first move always is that outside, high levered, non-shoulder committal top roll type deal.
Correct. So let's say Devin's on the world stage. How do you think he does against Krasimir at 230?
Oh, I think he loses. Yeah, because I don't believe he's going to be able to get out of the hand. I don't believe he's going to be able to and if we're talking rigid rules, like at the world level, he's definitely fucked. If we're talking wall rules, with the wall pads, there's a little bit of play where he can drive back. He can do some things that's more in his favor. But I think with rigid rules, there's no way. He will have to go into the power of that guy, and I don't think it's going to work out well. Yeah, I don't favor him at all. You?
Yeah, and again, I think we all have the Devin bias where we think Devin can do anything. But yeah, it probably wouldn't look good. And I think about, I try to find, you know, common competitors, right? So Tim Bresnan pulled Rustem, right?
Yeah.
And Rustem, I mean, gave Tim all he could handle for the most part. So is Devin now stronger than a 330-pound Tim Bresnan?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, so it's hard to believe, right? So then the question would be, can Devin technically get around Rustem?
Well, I think that there lies the problem is, can I get around these guys? I think if you're pulling the elite of the elite and your tactic is I got to get around them, I got to go around them, I think you're in trouble from a philosophical standpoint. I just don't think that works. It works. Maybe Matt Mass can do it. Like he can do it maybe, but I'm not. I don't think Devin can do that anymore. Not against.
Correct. And I mean, even Tim couldn't fully roll Rustem, right?
No.
So, and Tim's got a ton of pronation. I mean, Tim doesn't really get hooked like that. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, now that we have these discussions, on where Devin is probably on the world stage. Because, I mean, it wasn't long ago where people would have said, without a doubt, he's number one right and left hand.
Yeah, he can arguably go down as the greatest of all time only because he held those two right and left titles simultaneously for about a 2 to 3 year gap. He wasn't as dominant as John Brzenk for John Brzenk's prime years, but I mean, he's in the argument. So you have to give him his due. I just think he knows more than me. He's a great arm wrestler and he thinks great. His IQ is off the charts. I'm always asking myself, is his training philosophy always the best? I thought always, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, he should dial down the table and up his gym work. I think all the volume and all the pulling and relying on the table solely for gaining all his horsepower and gaining his strength might have impeded some of his muscular strength and might have helped to in all his elbow injuries. So I don't know.
So let's say Devin crossed the line, went full PED package. I mean, what do you think that looks like?
Well, he will. He absolutely will. I have no doubt about that. And what it looks like if he does it right, and he will, is 265, 268, 263, in that range.
I thought he had kind of hit that number going into PAL.
I don't believe he was in that. I don't think he was that heavy. And if he was a soft 260, very soft.
Okay, yeah.
I think he'll go into something like human growth hormone where he can heal a lot quicker. He can retain more muscle mass and a higher muscular composition to his body. I believe it'll be something along the lines of 265 with a much lower body fat percentage.
So let me ask you this. Let's say he peaks out on the PEDs. If his tactics are still the same, he's still evading and he's still trying to run for the king's move, does this work?
He won't. I don't think he will. No, the king's move won't work. I don't care how much shit's in your body. Not against certain pullers. I think he'd revert more to I'm not saying he'd never do it. I think you'd see the 2010 version of Devin again in a 265 pound version. I think you'd see more inside. Maybe you'd see more top rolling as well. You'd see a lot more strap, but I don't think you'd see as much of that outside garbage that we've been seeing in the last couple of years. Only because I think he claims it's a great move and it's I think he goes there because he feels he has to go there. I don't think anyone decides to go there. Todd goes there because he has to. Crazy George goes there because he has to. No one decides. No one starts in the arm wrestling world at 21 and says, fuck it. Hook top roll. No, I want to become a king's move guy. No one does that. It's not pretty. It's not widely respected. And despite what they say, I don't think they find much honor in it. I think there's just something they have to revert to be competent, to be efficient on the table.
Correct.
To be competitive.
Roger Kangingham has a comment saying that maybe Devin's focus is on the betterment and growth of arm wrestling.
Yeah, like he's an awesome guy. You can argue he's a better teacher. He's a better promoter than he is athlete at this junction in his career. Yeah, and he's an awesome dude, and he's doing great things. So yeah, he'll be in the sport for another 20 years, regardless of the capacity he's in.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen just with some of the YouTube videos and some of the analytics that Devin seems to be bigger than arm wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You make an arm wrestling video, few people look at it. You make a Devon Larratt video, everyone looks at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely different. Like he has his own sort of image and persona and all of that stuff. And I don't think many people have that.
Yeah. I got the impression that John Brzenk, when he slowly started to retire, he was losing the taste for arm wrestling, and he just faded, and he faded big time. I think Devin just loves the sport, regardless of if he declines or if he stops competing at a certain level. I just think he loves the sport as much as anyone, and we didn't see that with John as he slowly retired.
Yeah, John was. I don't think John was ever the coach that Devin was. Right? So Devin's always going to be around, even if it is just him coaching people and helping people, right?
Yeah.
That was never John's thing.
No, it wasn't John's fault.
At the same time, John also went full tilt and beat everybody.
Yeah.
You know, no leagues, no restrictions, none of that stuff. He beat every single body.
Yeah.
We got a comment from Chuck Ryder saying that Devin is borderline retirement. Yeah, I don't know, man. And it's kind of odd to have these discussions and say that Devin's probably, you know, not a top super heavyweight on the world scene, and probably not number one even at 225. You know, but I guess that's natural progression of an athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not on PEDs, I mean, at some point you're going to have to, you know, take the step down, right?
And the good news for the sport is I think he'll have a bigger impact as he declines. As he gets older, he'll have a bigger impact on the sport as a promoter / trainer / YouTube guy than he will ever had as an athlete. I think you're going to see that in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. What do you think about all the YouTube stuff and the Jujimufu and building the online presence?
Yeah, that's him slowly transitioning and also trying to make some money on the side, using his character, using his name, using his popularity to make a little bit of extra income. As we all know, he's retired from the military. And I think it fits in perfect. He's super popular. He's charismatic. He's highly analytical, highly intelligent. Yeah, it works. It's all good.